If you're interested in living in the suburbs around Tampa, Land O'Lakes has probably popped up for you a lot. This video is going to explain Land O'Lakes a little more in depth, hopefully give you some insight. Here we go. I'm Sam, and thanks for coming by the Living in Tampa channel, where we make these videos for you about what it's like to live and move to Tampa. We also run a team of realtors here in the area and would love to help you buy and sell real estate. We want to be your real estate choice in the whole Tampa area. Call, text, or email anytime, and we'd love to connect with you and see how we can help. A while back, I did the Tampa Explain series, and the goal of that was to kind of have a video that covered every area of the whole Tampa area. I've started to get a little smaller and identify areas that I haven't made specific videos about, and Land O'Lakes has been on that list. So I'm gonna loosely follow the Tampa Explain structure of proximity, style, size, and cost, and explain some of the details about this area. You see it here on the map. Land O'Lakes is right here in between Newport Richey and Wesley Chapel, on the north side of Pasco County, going all the way up to Highway 52. And just like it sounds, this area is filled with lakes, covered with lakes of all different sizes. Instead of going into that very specific criteria, let's start with the vibe, because my wife tells me I should talk about the vibe more often. The vibe of Land O'Lakes is really interesting because it's this kind of push and pull between sparse suburban and rural. There are some older stretches of this town, but there are a lot of newer communities that are kind of spaced out. There's quite a few communities right along Highway 54, like Bexley and the Preserve, but there's a lot of others like Connerton that I'm in right now that are northeast, like way up here, and then there's a couple other golf course communities up this way as well. And then a new master plan community, Angeline, going in over at the corner of Highway 52 and 589. That area was previously not even part of the city. It's an unincorporated part of the county. But if you look here at the area that Metro is going to develop for this, that it's massive. And we'll do some specific videos about Angeline soon to give some more insight into that. So the vibe: sparse suburban, rural, planned communities, and then older lake communities. Those are really kind of the four things that I think define the vibe of this area. And the last one, older lakefront communities. Why is that? Why does that come up at all? Because when people move into Florida, years ago, the first people to build houses, every time they build them on the water, whether that's on the beach or that's on the bay or that's on the lakes. So a lot of the time, the houses along the water tend to be older because they were just kind of the first ones. They were the ideal place to build whenever there was nothing around them. In Land O'Lakes, there's about 38,000 people, but it's really connected to all these towns around it. And we'll get into those specific towns as well. But let's look at the borders here. The north border of Land O'Lakes is Highway 52, and then some of these preserve areas that kind of create their own borders. On the east side, that's the Cypress Preserve. If you go to the other side of the Cypress Preserve, you're in Wesley Chapel. But that's a big like flood retention preserve area there. And then on the south side, it's mostly Highway 54 that defines the southern border of Land O'Lakes, even though there are some spots where it comes over on the south side of 54, but not many. And then on the west border of Land O'Lakes is mostly the toll road, 589, and Angeline is really pushing the city over to that to make 589 the new west border of Land O'Lakes. On the other side of that is the Starkey Wilderness, and then on the other side of the Starkey Wilderness is Newport Richey. So you have this kind of isolation of preserve area on the east and west sides of Land O'Lakes. So it's really kind of interesting. But especially along Highway 54, Land O'Lakes blends into these other towns seamlessly. You wouldn't know that you're in Odessa or Lutz or Wesley Chapel unless you're really paying attention. These towns share very common amenities and very common commercial development along this main highway. And these parks that surround, these big like preserve areas that surround it, being Starkey Wilderness, the Conner Preserve, and that Cypress Creek flood retention area, they all have trails. In the Cypress Creek one, there's trails that allow horses. In Starkey, there's long trails that are like 20 miles or something of bike trails and running trails. And all of these places have a lot of access in those ways. People do love the schools in this area, specifically Academy of the Lakes, which is a private school. And then the Sun Lake, the public schools are really highly rated too, and highly rated for Florida, which is not always highly rated compared to every other state. Homes in this area range from like entry-level small homes or apartments, condos, townhouses in the 300s all the way up to, over $1 million very easily once you get on the lake and once you get, a bigger size. But for the Tampa area, this is a bit more of an affordable, nice suburb compared to Wesley Chapel or New Tampa, or over in Pinellas County like Palm Harbor or Eastlake. And some of these neighborhoods have pretty similar vibes to those areas. I'm in Connerton right now. You see where this neighborhood is on the map. It's a newer development, and it has a few different builders in it. And with Lennar still actively building houses in this development right now. But there's small MI developments around here like Aaron's Mill. There's all kinds of little pocket neighborhoods and some really interesting golf course neighborhoods. But let's get into real quickly why you might choose to live in Land O'Lakes. First is that you want a neighborhood that feels like a neighborhood, where there's not like a highway right on the edge of it. Feels like it's safe, it's quiet, there's amenities like pools and golf courses and those kind of things. So a neighborhood that really feels neighborhood-like. Next reason why you might choose it is that you don't really care about being super close to the beaches. So from Connerton, where I am right now, it probably takes an hour to get to Fred Howard Beach in Tarpon Springs, which would be the closest, but not the nicest beach in the area. So you might want to go another 30 minutes to get to a little more robust of a beach. And if that's a day trip, not that big of a deal, not that crazy of a drive, but if you're looking to have easy access to that kind of stuff, it might be far. Number 3 reason you might choose it is that 30 to 40 minutes to get to stuff, whether that's the beach or that's downtown, doesn't feel far to you. You know, if maybe you're used to commuting. You know, if you're over in Angeline, close to the 589 expressway, it's going to be a lot faster to get down into Tampa, but that expressway does not go over to the beaches or to much area other than central Tampa. So if 30 to 40 minutes seems like pretty reasonable to you, then this could be a good area. Another reason why you might choose this area is that you want a big house. There are quite a bit of bigger houses here in neighborhoods like Connerton, a lot of bigger 4-bedroom houses, and maybe that's something that is important to you. Another reason you might really like Land O'Lakes is because of how conservative it is. That kind of mix of rural and sparse creates this really kind of conservative vibe. Where I grew up in small town Oklahoma, I define that as conservative. So everything in Florida and everything connected to Tampa just doesn't feel as conservative as that. So it never feels super conservative to me, but I enjoy this area for sure. It feels a little bit more like home. Okay, what are the major downsides of the area? We'll hit on these really quick. Number 1 major downside is there's no downtown, and you get this in these more sparse suburban areas. You know, there's shopping strips obviously on the highway, and there's like all kinds of development. And then like you can get into the outlet malls and Lutz, but that's still not like a downtown. I know I keep talking about Angeline, this new development, but it's really interesting. Angeline is going to develop more of a downtown in the neighborhood, but then that's in a neighborhood. It's not like for the whole town. It's kind of different. No downtown. Next major downside is that the commercial development is pretty minimal. So a lot of these neighborhoods just don't have commercial development inside of them, and that could be a pro or con depending on how you're thinking of that. But there's just not very robust commercial development in the area at all. Now, it might also be a major downside that you're going to have to experience a lot of that development happening around you. You know, they're building apartments and, warehouses and storage facilities and all kinds of that stuff all over. So you're going to have to endure that if you're living here now. Next major downside is that this area is pretty chain dominant. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Not a big local food culture or local business culture in this area yet. And then the last major downside, which is probably the biggest one for a lot of you, there are likely going to be HOA and CDD fees in all of these newer communities in this area. Now, those range in, scope. Like a neighborhood like Aaron's Mill, like the HOA and CDD is not that big because the neighborhood's not very big. But in Angeline or in Connerton, you're going to be looking at least $1,000 a year for the HOA and a few thousand a year for the CDD. I'm working on a CDD explainer video that I think will bring some insight into how that whole process works and why it is how it is. I hope through this video you gained a more in-depth understanding of Land O'Lakes and whether or not it will be right for you. If you missed the pros and cons video of Land O'Lakes, don't forget to check that out. That is linked right above. And a reminder, we are realtors and we want to hear from you. If you want to buy or sell real estate, we want to hear from you. Phone number and email are right there. Thanks for coming by.